Now is something that happens a lot. I tell you, before this discussion today, I probably watched 20 different discussions about GMOs, and what typically happens is one side focuses on politics, one side focuses on science, and then they try to bridge the gap. And you see what's happening right now. Sometimes bridging the gap is difficult because the science community, they don't care about the politics, and the politics side, they don't want to get into the weeds with the science information as much. They each know as much, they each cover the other side. I guess what I'm saying is this: there's going to be some points where we don't need to know all the details, but I do want to make sure two things. Thing number one, what time is it?
7.
It's 7. Thing number two is that we had time for one audience question.
Right here.
Started at 6:20. Thank you for that point. So we want to make sure that we have time for other audience questions. And let me do this, folks, to make sure that people have time to get their questions answered. This is a time to ask a question, not make a political statement or a statement. We just want to ask a question. We happen to have two very prominent experts here, and I just want us to be able to be educated by them.
Okay, this is a question which hopefully is a short answer from Dave. Since almost everything we eat has GMOs in it, and I know for a fact I've been eating GMOs for 43 years, and I'm as healthy as I can be. Why is the onus on the food industry to say what is GMO? Why can't the few companies that have non-GMOs just label themselves non-GMO and leave it at that? Why does it have to become go the other way, the harder way, to get your transparency that you're looking for?
Well, listen, first of all, you've only been eating genetically engineered foods for 20 years, and that they've only been on the market in the United States since 1996. So this is the 20th year anniversary of us being in the dark. And the question is, so again, food manufacturers that are putting ingredients in their food products have an obligation to inform people about what's in those food products. So you have labeling laws where, this is the ironic thing is the food industry fought tooth and nail, and they manufactured arguments when they tried to come up with labels that talked about nutrition content. So the fact is that you have fat, protein, sugar content, basic nutrition, and the ingredients thing, the food industry fought that, said, oh my God, it's going to be the end of our industry, no one's going to buy it. I'll just say, listen, I spoke at Monsanto's annual shareholder meeting, 2013, 2014, whenever it was, and I told them there's one thing: the basic foundation of a democracy and a free market system is information and transparency. Food manufacturers have the obligation to list these ingredients, because if you do not list the ingredients, and this is a real problem, you cannot track if there are possible allergenic responses in the human population. So they believe that right now the testing that was done in the 70s, 80s, and 90s to get these crops on the market, I believe was not sophisticated enough to tell some of the potential problems that are in these crops. So again, one of the problems is they're genetically engineered to be sprayed with Roundup, with glyphosate. Do you think a food company should sell you food that has high levels of a chemical that's linked to cancer, potentially linked to cancer, and a whole host of disease? So without the label, I'm just trying to answer your question. Without a label, when a child gets sick or someone gets sick, they will not be able to track back where that illness possibly came from. We think labels are very important. And why do you want to put the onus on a food manufacturer? Most companies and most that are producing non-GMO food, they put that label on their products because, thank God for people. We stood up in California. We made the non-GMO label the fastest growing, highest price premium in the marketplace. So people are putting that on their food manufacturers. So if you want to go find a non-GMO thing, but I'll just say, why do I believe the labels are important? Because I'm from a state in Iowa. I lived in New York City, one block south of Harlem, when I went to grad school. All I can say is, I don't grow up in a place where access to organic food is really an option. There's a lot of people in America that don't have access only to conventional food. I believe that the rights of poor people should be the same as the rights of wealthy people. We should all know what's in our food.
Now, the question was addressed to Dave, but Bob, if you want an opportunity to respond to that, you're welcome to. Otherwise, if there's any other hands up, Tracy will come and address your question.
All right. I don't know if you're aware, but this Friday in The Hague, Netherlands, they're holding a a public trial against Monsanto for crimes against humanity. You know, GMOs are so safe, and why are there people all around the world that think that in the last century that Monsanto has pretty much, with their chemical-intensive methods of food production, you know, poisoned people, destroyed biodiversity, pushed small farmers off their land, and ultimately poisoned the environment.
So the question is, well, why is Monsanto
If it's so safe, safe, then why are they, why are they going to be on trial?
So safe, yeah. Okay, so why is Monsanto being tried if their products are so safe?
I'm not here to defend Monsanto or to talk against Monsanto. That's not my job. And all I can say is that this is a politically charged issue, and one can talk about the political system and corporations, but that's not a scientific issue. And so if you want to ask me a question about the science, I'm happy to answer to the best of my ability, but people have different views when it comes to corporations and how they're used in our system. It's as simple as that.
Thank you. Tracy, is anybody else with their hand up?
Hi. Thank you both for coming. My wife and I have 2 one-year-old boys, and we are faced with a very practical, non-political, non-ideological problem that many young families are faced with. We go to the grocery store, and a lot of times we have to choose between more expensive, either organic or non-GMO labeled foods, or less expensive, and we're balancing our concern for our kids' health and safety and what we may know now or may not know yet, and our grocery budget. So if you could give us some rationale that I can buy the cheap stuff, that would be really helpful.
Well, first of all, that's a really great question. But first of all, the vast majority of stuff you buy in the grocery store is not genetically engineered using DNA technology. And so there's no vegetables that are genetically engineered. You know, most of the genetically engineered stuff that you eat is in processed food. Maybe a little bit of squash, a little bit of sweet corn, but not very much. Certainly papaya from Hawaii, but all the rest is conventionally bred. The second issue is really there's been no proven benefit of organic food in terms of health and nutrition. There's been many studies. If you want to buy it, I think it's great. It is a lot more expensive, but that's simply the answer that I have.
Can I answer that real quick?
Please, yeah.
Listen, I would just say, I'm not a scientist. Bob pointed it out. I don't spend a lot of time in laboratories. I'm a writer and a researcher, my background and training, and I do spend a lot of time alone. So I do a lot of research. I read a lot of scientific studies, and I ask scientific experts about what the issues are. And so the interesting thing is, I asked scientists that have the same degrees as Bob and all the biotech scientists, and whenever a scientist shows potential harm to a GMO crop or to this chemical, they're ruthlessly attacked. And I mean, it's political assassination. It's not people like Bob that have done this. It is corporations that have kind of weaponized science against, and they create a really toxic environment at the public universities if a scientist shows harm. So listen, I want to stand up for science, and I think it's important, but I also think organic agriculture is very important. I would come from the state of Iowa, and we have the highest rates of cancer in the Midwest. We have 97% of GMO soy, 94% of our state is genetically engineered corn. So that's basically an ocean of GMOs, and factory farms is the other part of the equation in Iowa agriculture. So I'll just say, you are exposed to chemicals, which Murphy's Law of Food and Agriculture. If a chemical can kill a bug and kill a plant, most likely long-term exposure, could cause significant harm to you. Now, it doesn't cause cancer in everyone. It may not show up, but the fact is 1 in 2 American men will have cancer in the United States. These are the new data points, and 1 in 3 women. So I'll just say, if you think organic food is expensive, try paying for chemotherapy. I'm just saying, I believe in preventive medicine. I was raised in a house where food is medicine. I was taught that. My parents were evangelical Republicans. Ironically, they had this strange belief that they could heal themselves with food.
Well, thank you for that response. I think we have time for one more question, folks, and we're going to ask our speakers to wrap it up and get out of the cold.
So this is a very simple, neutral question. Either of you can answer, and I'm sorry if it's already been answered. I don't think so. But I'm just curious how this relates to the current election, because from what I understand, Prop 37 was in 2012,
Yep.
and none of the propositions on this November 8th election has to do with GMOs. I'm just wondering how that relates, if it does.
No, there's no ballot initiative in the United States anymore. We ran 4 ballot initiatives in 3 states, in 2012, 2013, and 2014. We have ballot initiatives in California, Washington, Oregon, and Colorado. And just this summer, in July, Congress passed a law that requires mandatory disclosure. But the problem with this bill is it preempts states' rights on labeling food that's genetic engineering. And the other issue is the real problem with the bill, the Dark Act bill, I call it Monsanto's Dream Bill, or Monsanto's corporate coup. Basically, they can. I know Bob loves that. I am a political person. I am a political person, and I am a policy person. And I just, I do think science is very important, but I think it's important to get it right. And I'll just say, so the thing is, with the new modern bill that passed, mandatory disclosure, you can have a QR code, or you can have a 1-800 number to find if your food is genetically engineered. And we just find that a farce. And we believe that the people, the elected officials, the senators that fell for that and passed it, we're going to be holding them accountable in this election cycle and the next. So I am a political person. I think politics is very important, and I think science is important. And unfortunately, science has been politicized. And I think it's up to the American people to rise up and demand that our regulators and our public officials actually stand up for real science and not corporate science.
That's a good cue, and I appreciate that. And for what it's worth, I'll say at ProCon.org, we have asked the presidential candidates for their views on genetic labeling, and you can read their responses right there on the site.
It's just the body and the only thing wrong with it is sounds Frankenstein.
But she also came out for mandatory labeling. I mean, I'm just saying, here's the thing. Whoever you elect, it's not the person you elect that's the problem.